So good.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Okay, first I want to know this. How do you do it all? Underground, this show, like how do you do it all?
It was a blessing, you know. This the shooting schedule for these sort of was divinely gifted to me because I started the shooting schedule for Shots Fired in the early months of summer, and we wrapped up in July. And I started on Underground in August, which took me through until December. It was a blessing because honestly, playing Pastor Janae was a beautiful preparation for taking on Harriet Tubman, and Harriet Tubman was sort of a beautiful homage, you know, that sort of manifested itself as the modern day legacy. In Pastor Janae, you know, where there would no Harriet Tubman, there would be no Pastor Janae, and so the two roles, you know, sort of speak to one another, and so I think Pastor Janae sort of opened my spirit to be able to receive, you know, the presence of Harriet Tubman's spirit, which is what ultimately I needed in order to play that role.
I mean, you are amazing in both roles. Like I praise you every week online. Like you deserve to win everything. It's great. Because you play in both Shots Fired and Harriet Tubman in Underground, they're such serious, passionate roles that regard politics and growth for Black Lives Matter movement, for Black lives, and just and just community. How important was it for you to play these roles, and what did you feel? What impact do you feel like these roles have done for you?
It was extremely important for me because I think, you know, as a citizen of this country, as a human being in the world, I had gotten to a place where I was grieved. I was grieved, you know, by what I was seeing, by what I was hearing, by what I was experiencing in the world, and feeling hopeless and helpless, you know, and feeling like there was nothing that I could do of significant impact to sort of speak to what was going on and what I was feeling. And so I was very deliberate in praying about something and somewhere to sort of deal and work through that. And these projects sort of came along, you know, and gave me a place to use that which I've been gifted to do as an artist, and use it, you know, in activism, you know. And so in doing so, it has broadened, I think, my territory, amplified my voice, which then allows me an opportunity to amplify the voices of those who are 24/7 activists, you know, on the ground, you know, and sort of give them a platform, and spread the messages that they're spreading, and to help to, you know, to pour into, you know, the resources that are necessary for them to do the work that they're doing. And so now I certainly feel like I'm functioning in the fullness of purpose, you know, and I'm making way more of an impact than I was before.
I mean, this series is so great. You're, as Pastor Janae, you go through so many emotions and also push for the riots. You also may potentially be the killer. How is it going through the emotions of the scripts? Because first they made you the pastor, and then they made you the suspect.
Yeah, you know, I always sort of approach Pastor Janae as someone who was earnestly in pursuit of justice, but I also knew that she was a full human being, and so with that, she's flawed, you know, and so I didn't want to necessarily play it like, oh, I could be the killer, I could, you know what I mean? I just wanted to play the fullness of her humanity, which means that sometimes she might make, you know, rash decisions, tough decisions, emotion-driven decisions, which many times we do, you know, especially, you know, when we're dealing with this kind of subject matter, these kinds of experiences. And so, you know, a situation like the uprising, you know, never would she have wanted to put her community in danger. You know, she says to Helen Hunt's character, you know, maybe I did want another Ferguson, recognizing that while it was a tragedy, some things were birthed out of you know, the uprising and the riots in Ferguson. And so I think she was thinking in that way, but I think she was wanting to always speak to that sweet spot in the community that lies between complacency and chaos, wanting to, you know, stir them up so that they weren't complacent in the sight of injustice, but certainly not push them towards chaos, you know. And so with that, I just sort of rode the wave and opened myself up and to be available for all of the emotions. I didn't, you know, necessarily engage in a tremendous amount of self-care to try to push the emotions away, because they're always sort of on the surface, especially watching the news. You know, I invited them because I wanted to make sure that they were available and accessible for Pastor Janae and for, you know, the story.
And one more follow-up. Because the series touches on a touchy subject, how difficult was it to go through the script and go through this whole emotions of playing this character and going through this whole process, recording, playing it, and watching it, to how it parallels to real life and the situations with Mike Brown, Sandra Bland? Like, how was it? How difficult was it for you?
You know, it was weighty. It was certainly weighty, and there were days where it felt like it was weighing down on you and it was suffocating you. And I had those moments, you know, where I released, where I had to. But we were sort of very supportive to one another, our entire crew who lived in the South. You know, there are quite a wealth of stories of people who have had, you know, myriads of experiences with law enforcement. And so, you know, some days it was really challenging to push through. But then you're reminded that this is the reason why we're doing this, you know, and that we are afforded a unique opportunity to tell this story, but then go home, you know, to call cut and remove ourselves from the situation, whereby some people don't have that luxury. And so it required that we continue to just show up for it with the fullness of our emotions.
That was beautifully said. Thank you. And did you kill Campbell?
Surely you don't think that. Pastor Janae just wants justice. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.